ICE and therefore unlocking a funding package that could pass. So we could be in a world in which 11 agencies are up and running, but DHS is closed, unless, of course, there's a continuing resolution. Progressives say they don't want that, and same for the Freedom Caucus, right? So no one's getting along. And it's times like these we benefit from a couple of minutes with Maura Gillespie, a veteran of John Boehner's Speaker's office, Republican strategist, now the force behind Blue Stack Strategies. It's great to see you in the nation's capital.
Thanks for having me.
We did away with some of the ice before you, but I'm sure it's worse in New Jersey anyway, right?
But there's still ice here.
There's a lot.
I can tell you, I wiped out earlier today.
No, you didn't, really?
I did, yeah.
I'm so sorry.
In a very cartoon-esque fashion.
I don't believe that. Did anyone see it?
Yeah.
Really?
I would hope that some people saw it.
For their own sense of humor.
Yeah, just listen. Yeah.
That's very gracious of you. I took a major digger on the ice about 2 weeks ago, and it was like one of those redefining. I was seeing stars. And it's definitely changed the way I approach my walk into the office. So humbling indeed. How humbled will Mike Johnson be at the end of this week? Because it's not looking like this is going to turn into a deal. But it's funny, Maura, I keep seeing headlines about cautious optimism, light at the end of the tunnel. You're saying there's a chance. Are you buying any of that?
What other position does he have to have? I mean, he's got to try and stay optimistic given what he's got in a conference where he doesn't have much wiggle room to have. He's got to stay optimistic. You know, you got Senator John Thune coming out saying he's really urging Democrats to play ball, to find a way to resolve this because, as he pointed out, TSA doesn't get funded if DHS goes without funding again. And the lapse is just to DHS, as you already pointed out. Everything else is funded. But they're only funded, more or less through a continuing circumstance anyway. Appropriations policy, typically it's done in the summer and then goes through another process. But we've kind of pushed and kicked the can down the road so often that's kind of why we're here where we are now. But it becomes a numbers game, as it has been for Speaker Johnson. And I think Thune is trying to do as much as he can to help him be in better footing.
Is there anything that Republicans, that you're hearing at least, are willing to offer beyond body cameras? Was kind of, I think, the attempt by the agency to say, hey, okay, we're just going to do this right now. But when it comes to demasking, total breakdown. When it comes to judicial warrants, total breakdown. Is there anything that Democrats walk away with here or no?
It's interesting because you're seeing different states say that they're going to be enforcing that mask rule.
Yeah.
I don't know how they're going to do that without having.
Ugly.
Yeah, and I think that's where you're going to see maybe some movement, because if states put pressure on their members, saying we're looking to do this, you need to push, kind of push back. That's going to become an issue. So I do think there's going to be some conversations going on between state and federal to maybe then get them to either acquiesce on the position that Republicans have or vice versa.
So are you considering a world in which DHS shuts down indefinitely? I mean, there's been a conversation about how do we silo DHS, but or ICE, I guess, would be the real way of putting it, while also funding FEMA, Coast Guard, and the TSA. Is that possible? Could appropriators do this?
I don't know how they'll separate it. I do think that's going to be a problem. I'm sure it's what members would love to have happen, because it's easier for them to get behind a bill that supports FEMA, that supports TSA agents, and making sure that that's all covered. But there's something that's going to get done between today is Wednesday, Friday is the deadline. So if so many members are saying they're not going to be part of this continuing resolution, you're going to start hearing from organizations and from constituents who are concerned about travel. There's already enough concerns about travel right now. We just saw the FAA just put out this El Paso and then overturned it within a matter of, which felt like hours.
Totally bizarre.
Very bizarre situation. And so more questions and more confusion. And that's the last thing that airports need is fearful travelers. It's already a heightened situation. And so I do think that a continuing resolution to get through Friday and through the weekend, if they're not willing to play ball there, then you have to look at what's going to happen next week. And members weren't slated to be, at least the House, to be in town.
Yeah. TSA would go without pay once we get into March, from what I understand. So maybe Democrats see a couple of weeks to play with before this becomes an urgent front page story. Airport story. But talk to me about what happened with this tariff vote yesterday. This is interesting, and it is being framed, at least in the tip sheets this morning, as a very big deal, a turning point. Donald Trump finally found the line in the Republican-led House and Senate. What we're really talking about is 217, 214. 3 Republicans crossed over to block future votes or to block a block on future votes over the president's tariffs. Mike Johnson tried like heck to keep the conference together. Is this a watershed moment or a jailbreak of just 3 members?
I think what it shows you is that there is an appetite to reclaim control over a power that the Congress has. It's Article 1 of the Constitution. And many members have privately expressed frustration over it being handed over to the president because they also know that back at home, tariffs, while it was messaged differently during the campaign, it's a tax. And it's largely felt by the American consumer. And that's a message that they're having a hard time not only justifying to their constituents, but then in talking from a constitutional aspect, that's a role that they had, that the speaker has more or less given over to the president. And I understand that Speaker Johnson's approach to this is saying, let's let the courts play out and let them decide. Members who have said, okay, fine, they've waited a long time for the court to decide on tariffs, and it still hasn't come out yet. And so presented with this vote last night, they chose to say, no, I'm going to reclaim the position of the ability of Congress to make decisions on tariffs. I don't know that I necessarily say it's a watershed moment, but it may give other members who are feeling this privately a little bit more courage to say, I support that.
Okay, so that's my next question is because Democrats aren't waiting around. There's going to be a vote tonight, it looks like, on Gregory Meek's bill when it comes to Canada tariffs. And they're going to come around again and again and again to try to get Republicans on the record one way or the other. You either like tariffs and you can make Trump happy and maybe your constituents unhappy, or you're going to cross the boss on this. Is that the actual strategy here?
Well, I'd have to see what Gregory Meek's legislative kind of text is, because if it's revolving around this bridge situation that we saw kind of play out on social media this week, that may give some members some cover to say, well, we're still figuring this part out with Canada.
Bigger picture, though.
Bigger picture.
Do you want to be called out if you're a Republican?
Being put on record?
Being put on record here.
Saying you're pro-tariffs,
because the president can veto
pro-taxes.
whatever they pass, right?
Right. That becomes a problem, again, when you're getting, we inch every day closer to the 2026 midterms.
Yep. And
they're going to be on record saying that they are pro-tariffs, pro-taxes. That's going to be a problem, and it's ripe for an advertisement against them come the summer.
Over and over and over. By the way, the Senate has already voted against these tariffs. I'm assuming that there's no anti-veto majority here.
And you have several senators who have come out saying, this is our responsibility. In the Constitution, it lays it out for Congress to decide on taxes and tariffs, and then for the executive to implement it. And I think on this show I've said it's hard for me to recognize that I've agreed with Rand Paul more times this year than I can really remember in my lifetime on the Hill. But he has been pretty vocal about it, and among others who have, again, pointed to the constitutionality of this position to give them cover in their conservative, values, that they're standing by the Constitution and the president isn't. And so trying to draw that line, I also think is going to be a benefit to them as they look forward in their elections, because again, the president's not running again, right? He can't, and they are. And if they are, they need to be standing in their conservative principles. And so this is in a position where they could point out that difference.
This is going to get even more interesting after the midterms, but
Certainly.
He's trying very, very hard to put himself on the ballot. It's going to be a Republican midterm convention. Does that keep the conference largely in line until then?
I don't know that it does.
No?
I do think that there are more and more cracks in the Trump stronghold as people recognize the economy is not where it was supposed to be, that was promised, that these ICE raids have been more damaging and making people feel less safe, which is the opposite goal, which was intended to create a safer, stronger security. And you find more and more of these fissures in the Republican stronghold that Trump has had. And I think, you're pointing to some off-ramps for Republicans to look to and say, I'm standing for my constituents, not just for what the administration is pushing out today.
Really interesting. I think you pointed to something really important, and remember this if and when it happens. This could turn into a states versus federal law enforcement issue when it comes to masking if Congress can't figure this out.
And it may.
That in itself is a pretty scary prospect.
It is, but I also think you have to remember that conservatives, in a principle, they believe in smaller, more accountable government. And that's what that looks like.
States' rights.
Absolutely.
Great to see you.
Thanks,
Maura
Robbie.
Gillespie, what a rare treat to have the founder of Blue Stack Strategies with us in the flesh in Washington. Let us know when you're back in town, and I'm sure you'll be back on our panel soon. Maura Gillespie on Bloomberg Radio. Live on YouTube, search Bloomberg Business News Live. We'll assemble our panel next, only here on Balance of Power, Bloomberg Radio.